Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc number 2, part 4 of I Am Part of This Problem. I left off talking about my race war in grade school. See, before I knew I was part Native American, I only thought I was part black and part white. I didn't know I was part Native American until my 5th grade teacher, God rest her soul, Miss Conrad, pointed that out. Now, Miss Conrad and them probably don't know about this, but they were teachers, so I'm pretty sure they were highly fucking aware of the racial tension between blacks and white kids in our school. So I had my own problems because I was enamored with these 2 light-skinned black girls, LT and SW. I'm not giving names, people. You can pretty much put it together. I only dated black girls before those 2 girls because I had a girlfriend named Emily who did things that just pissed me off, who was also black. Which is what led to LT and SW having a conversation with me about my race and how I would never be good enough for black girls. And somewhere in the back of my mind, that shit stuck. It didn't stay there forever, but it stuck, and it wound up being more true to life than anything else. But that's not here or there. Let's get to the relevance of this video. So, between the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, it was mostly between the 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade, but since I was in the 4th grade twice, let's get to it. There was a race war, point blank period. And I'm going to use the actual words instead of derogatives. Alright, so I'm going to probably offend you. This video is definitely not for kids. So, I've also made this video before, so you can find it in case I leave anything out. I went to school, and mixed kids were a commodity. Alright, so we weren't like it is now. We existed, but we were nowhere like it is now. Alright? Forbidden love was a thing, but it still happened, and people like me do exist. The Rock's a year older than me. He does exist. I'm pretty sure he probably had the same experiences in school. But see, he's black and Samoan, where my ass is black, white, and Native American. So he's a double threat, and I'm a triple threat. Alright, so here's the thing. I went to school, and black kids were rallying up, and white kids were rallying up. And all of these guys are my friends. There's black kids that are rallying up, there's white kids that are rallying up, and there's me, the half-breed, which I was called a lot. So I go to school, and I'm hanging with these guys, in the playground. It's like, yeah, we're gonna fuck these guys up. We're gonna fuck these guys up. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? James, we don't want you on our side because you're not a real nigger. You're a half nigger. And that was from the black guys. Then I went to the white guys. Oh, we don't want you on our side because you're not really one of us white people. You're actually one of those half-black guys. And sometimes they said, you're not a real honky. You're a half-honky. Well, the surprise was on all of us because I was also part Cherokee and I didn't fucking know it. But the point being is that they both didn't want me around. So when the racial stuff started going down, it's like, nobody tells James anything because he's a half-breed. We can't trust him. He's going to go tell the white people this. He's going to tell the black people this. And we really just can't trust him. And I'm like, what the fuck, yo? I even lived in the neighborhood with the black guys. But yet they couldn't trust me, which is how they knew that I was mixed because my mom looks white. She's not white, but she could pass for white. I've lost her twice in a crowd of white people. Trust me. Premium blend can blend right in. That's a personal joke with me and my brother. Anyway, so during this time in school, we were learning about sex and all kinds of other stuff. This is also one of the times during the year where the white girl called me a nigger and I punched her in the mouth. I didn't mean to do it. It just happened like that. I had been street fighting since I was 6 years old. And let's see, how old are you in the 4th grade? I think you're like 8? 8 or 9? Well, I was in the 4th grade twice, so I was 8 and 9. I think it was the fucking 2nd year in the 4th grade. It's either 2nd or 3rd year, first or 2nd year in the 4th grade. And her name started with a C. And I don't even know why we were arguing. It had to be the 2nd year. Because John and what's-her-face was in the class. And they moved to Roanoke. They were boyfriend and girlfriend whose families both actually moved to Roanoke. How lucky for them. Don't know if they're still alive. Don't know where they are. John's last name was Wood something, and the girl, I can't remember her whole first or last name. But anyway, sorry, John. Didn't mean to put your name out there like that. But anyway, so when I hit her, there was blood on my knuckle from her mouth. But what led to it was a word that we never used in our house. I mean, ever. We never used the N word in our house. We never had the word nigger come out of our mouths. It was never in our house. It was never on our TVs, anything. Even George Jefferson didn't even use that shit. Except for he did use the word honky a fucking lot, you know, and being kids, we didn't know what the fuck that shit was. We just were like George Jefferson, watched him pimping, being insulted by his maid, Florida, Flora, whatever the hell her name is. Anyway, so we're in school, and we're at recess. And me being a little pervert, I used to flip over the teacher's head and look up her skirt and shit, until one of the teachers put it into that shit. But that's not here or there either. Hey, I own my shit. The young lady whose name starts with a C, somehow we got to arguing. I don't remember if I started it, but I do know that I finished it. And whatever the hell we argued over, it got racial. In the midst of a race war during school. And she looked at me and said, James, you're a nigger. And before I knew what happened, my left hand said, boop. Which is funny because I'm not, like, biologically left-handed. I've trained myself to be left-handed through all the street fighting that I've done. And before I knew what happened, I was like, go! And I mean, it left the chamber so quickly. It was back at my side. There was blood dripping everywhere. And my camera just glitched, so forgive me. I hope you guys can still see me. Anyway, so the blood was on my knuckle, and her mouth was dripping blood, and she was screaming. She hadn't dropped or anything, but she was screaming. So I hit her just hard enough to break the skin. But I didn't hit her hard enough to kill her, but she was damn sure hurt. And the teacher rushed over there. What did you do, James? What did you do? She already knew it was me. Like, already. And I just remained silent. Yeah, she's like, you need to tell me what you did, boy. And I was like, And then she looked at the girl's mouth and said, oh my God, you bust her mouth. Go to the office. So I went to the office, and our principal, God rest his soul, I don't know if he's still alive, Mr. Garrett. He's Italian, and he was from New York, so he's basically a white dude with a tan. Kind of like my grandfather. My grandfather, like, he could pass for a white dude with a tan. So Mr. Garrett sat me in the office, and he said, James, you haven't been in trouble in the entire time you've been in this school. You've never done anything wrong. Why did you hit this girl in the mouth? And I told him, I'd rather not say. Why did you hit her in the mouth? You're looking at some serious problems here. You hit a girl in the mouth. You bust her lip. Now, what did you do that for? You've never been in trouble here. Why would you do that? And I looked at him and I was like, I can't really say. It's like, you need to say, or I'm going to have to call your parents and say, well, you just got to call my mom, dude, because I'm not going to tell you why I hit this girl in the mouth. Now, I've already done enough damage. Her blood's on my knuckle, so there's no, I'm guilty. Yeah, there's no getting out of it. And so he calls my mom, and he calls her parents. And so Mr. Garrett finally gets me to talk. He says, you need to tell me why you hit that girl in the mouth, seriously, before your parent and her parent gets here, because, you know, they may, like, call the cops or whatever, you know, so basically scare tactics. And I said, well, she called me a nigger. It's like, what? I said, yeah, she called me a nigger. I said, well, why didn't you just tell the teacher that? I said, because I didn't think she would believe me. So why would I not? I mean, it's like maybe 4 black kids in the class. Everybody else is white. And then the fact that I'm mixed. You know, so teacher doesn't even know I'm black. So it was like, yeah, there's no way I was going to win this one other than to just come to the office. It's like, okay, you need to go back to class until your mom gets here. Just send me back to class. Sent the girl back to class. And the teacher had us separated. So, like, this would be her desk way up here, and my desk would be way back here. And the teacher just kept giving me leery looks like she wanted to slap the shit out of me because of what I did to this little white girl. But the fact that the little white girl called me a nigger never got back to anybody in class. Even John and his girlfriend didn't want to be my friends anymore. Even when they got there and got the chance to talk to me, and I told them, I said, well, she called me a nigger. Oh, she didn't call you that. It's like, yeah, she kind of did, because otherwise I would have never ever hit a girl in the first place, because I was raised better to not hit girls. And they didn't believe me. They didn't have anything to do with me anymore after that. I think we may have talked maybe a few times after that until it was actually settled at the principal's office. So the principal came, they called us, had to go back. My mom was coming. Her parents were there. My mom got there. They separated her and me. So C was sitting in one office room. I was sitting in like the infirmary office or whatever, because there wasn't a lot of spaces there. There was the nurse's office, the principal's office, the vice principal's. So she was sitting in the vice principal's office, which was across from the nurse's office, which is where I was. And they were talking. This is the first time my mom ever went to bat for me, by the way. So he's like, "What happened here?" It's like, your son hit this little girl in the mouth. Okay, well, what did the little girl do to my son? Because we don't raise my sons and boys in our family to hit girls. Well, your son wouldn't tell us what she did at first. He's like, okay, well, what the hell did she do? He said, oh, she called your son a nigger. And at first, they didn't really understand that my mom's not white. And the white family that was there was like, well, why would she call a white woman's son a nigger? And she's like, well, first and foremost, I'm not white. I'm mixed. And I just look white. And I would have punched her daughter in the mouth too if she called me a nigger. And it's like, what? And Mr. Gibbs said, hold on. Miss Williams, who was back to Miss Rose, they're like, no, she's right. You know, she should not have called your son and her son the N-word. And he's like, I don't play that shit in my school. Which is why I'm not going to take action on the boy, because she should not have called him that shit. Now, we don't know what you're doing at home, but if you're telling your daughter it's okay to call black people the N-word, then you should be telling her, explaining to her why she doesn't have any teeth in her mouth. Which, by the way, I did not knock out her teeth. I only busted her lip. I'm still ashamed of hitting her to begin with from this day, because no man should ever put his hands on a woman. Regardless of circumstance, I'm guilty as fuck. I should not have hit her. I outwardly admit that I am going to be ashamed of that for the rest of my life, regardless of how y'all look at that as me being a person of righteousness or some kind of good character flaw. There is no character flaw in the universe that says that me hitting this girl because she called me a nigger was a good thing. It's not. You should never put your hands on a woman unless she's trying to kill you. A few words aren't really going to hurt like talking about it. But this would carry with me into the end of time. Because today at 47, I don't know where C is. And I still feel bad for busting her lip even though she called me a nigger. I still feel bad about that shit. Because I've never raised my hand to a woman before that or since that shit. Because I wasn't raised that. See, if she doesn't have something in her hand, which makes her more dangerous to me, a brush, a pen, a knife, a gun, then she's a woman. They are our gifts from God. I know, got a little bit off track. So now, let me ask you tokens who are following the problem of racist rhetoric. Do you believe that I was in the right for punching a young white girl for calling a young mixed brother a nigger? Because I wasn't right. I might have been right at the time, but I would later find out that I'm not just a black kid. I'm black, white, and Cherokee, which a year later I found out because Miss Conrad, God rest her soul, kept pointing that shit out. And she also got me a really good ass whipping about some bars of soap that I had to carve into a canoe. Clearly my ancestors were scouts. They weren't carvers. Anyway, now, the guts and glory of this whole video is that I am angry, but I'm also part of the problem. I'm part of the problem because I'm totally against people of color following our president. After seeing all the racial shit that he's done, after seeing all the racial shit that he said, after watching him tell Native Americans, you don't like Native Americans to me. See, my bias towards Trump goes way back before he was president. Way back. Way back. It has nothing to do with today's racist stuff. It has to do with all the racist shit that he's ever done leading up to today, which goes back to 1993, fresh out of high school, telling people who are having casinos because Native Americans aren't getting full restitution from a country which they owned and was taken from, which is why I have black ancestors as well as Native American ancestors as well as white ancestors, because if Native Americans would have had more superior firepower, this country wouldn't be the way it is right now. Granted, tribal infighting was a thing, so there's no saints there. But at the same time, They were taken by a bigger enemy. They were taken by a more powerful enemy. Gunpowder was taken from China. Parcels was made. And next thing you know, you have war. If you don't get off my door, we're going to war. Anyway, moving on. So, you have gunpowder. You have superior firepower. You have superior weapons. You have cannonballs, some shit Native Americans never saw. You have bullets. Well, they're using spears and arrows. Not crossbows, by the way. Arrows with actual bows. And their little shield is like Zulu shields for their body armor, which really isn't 1,000% effective against a musket. You know, one musket to the head and your ass is dead. It's just that simple. You know, no one found out a way to make things bulletproof. Not before Clint Eastwood and Hang 'em High or whatever one it is, or something for Sister Sarah, whatever. Point being made, you know, if Native Americans didn't lose America, none of y'all would be here. And people like me would be ostracized for being mixed. So yeah, this is the way history works. You know, history is written by the victors. So for all of you tokens, and for all of you people who are of Asian ethnicity who are following this guy, this is my problem with y'all. Are y'all all blind, or all stupid, or do you all just not care, or is it because it doesn't affect you directly? I'm not doing this to be a dick. I'm saying it because, have y'all not done your research? Before I even started condemning Donald Trump for his racist shit, I went and looked for the shit, you know, because I remember it, but I don't remember it all the way it's supposed to be remembered. So, I remember in 93, between 93 and 95, there was a lot of racial tension in California. You had the O.J. Simpson thing, you had the Rodney King thing, you had the Reginald Denny thing, you had the riots, and then years before that, before I was even born, you had the riots. You had a lot of racial tensions in America in general, and you guys want to follow this guy, you know, because some of the shit that he says is cool, because it doesn't affect your ethnicity, you know. He hasn't said anything about blacks, but he has said a whole bunch of shit about Native Americans. He said a lot of shit about Asians in general, specifically the Chinese. And again, you want to follow this because he's cool. You want to follow this because, oh, let's see, he saved some basketball players' kids who have money because their company ballers didn't want to fly to China and do negotiations to get them the fuck out of trouble. He let a woman that Kim Kardashian fought for out of prison and gave her a full pardon because she was selling drugs. The fact that selling drugs is just bad in itself, so she doesn't get punished harshly. Although I will give it that she was punished exceptionally hard for dealing drugs versus the people who actually kill people over drugs. You know, she got a harder sentence than somebody who committed murder. I get that. I understand that. I'm with that. And I know she's going to vote for Trump. It's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I know she's going to vote for Trump. I know half you Kanye fans are going to vote for Trump. And that's cool. You know, you have your opinion on that. That's cool. It's not affecting me here or there. But I will ask you, did you think about all this shit before you decided to get on the Trump bandwagon? Did you think about how many other racial incidences that he's been involved with? Did you think about the Central Park Five that was accused of raping the white lady and who did time in jail and probably were victims of rape while they were fucking kids and never got a rape? Oh yeah, they got their settlement now. They're getting their money now. That doesn't change the fact that they were innocent and went to jail and they were raped. And your president said that these 5 young men should be hung. But y'all probably didn't go and take a look at that while you token blacks are following this guy. And for you token Asians who are not Chinese or Korean, or let me rephrase that, who are not Chinese, you know, do you honestly think that he can tell the difference? I mean, I can't tell the difference. And even with knowing last names, I have Chinese friends, I have Korean friends, I have Vietnamese friends, I have Filipino friends. And if you ask me, can I tell the difference just by looking at them? I'm going to tell you the truth. Hell to the no. And now I'm not even sure because their names are so interchangeable. You know, my Korean friends, their last names are Kim and Chow and Chong. And as far as I knew, Chow and Chung were Chinese names. Who knew? I didn't. And then some of my Filipino names, they have Spanish last names. Because Cortez, his ass got around. Same thing with Mexicans who are basically Native Americans who are basically Asian. They have Spanish last names because Cortez got around. Okay? Spanish conquerors were a thing. You know, the Filipinos, they have Spanish last names because they were conquered by Spain. Not that difficult to understand. You know, if you meet somebody who's like me and his name is Juan Hernandez Lopez, well, he's still Native American, but whatever part of Panama he comes from, he was conquered by conquistadors. Who wiped out the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incans, and some of the Amazons? Conquistadors. Conquistadors are Spanish soldiers from Spain, which is why you have Mexican Spanish, and you have Spain Spanish. You understand the concept of that. It's not me being a dick. I learned this from Mexicans that the Spanish that I was learning in school would probably get me fucked up in the streets of Mexico. Okay? Luckily for me, no habla español muy bien. I don't speak Spanish very well. And since I don't speak Spanish very well, I try not to speak that shit at all, just so that I don't get my shit fucked up. Same thing with Japanese. I learned karate. I learned maybe 5 or 6 Japanese words. Domo arigato. Sayonara. Konnichiwa. That's like 3. Alright, so konnichiwa is hello. Arigato is thank you. Sayonara is goodbye. Ni hao ma. That's hello in Chinese. But is it pinyin or is it Mandarin? I don't know. Because it's the only Chinese word I know outside of Pai Tai Guai Lo. Guai Lo is insulting to people who are not Chinese. Same with Gaijin, which is Japanese for someone who is not of Asian ethnicity. Okay? So I know a few words. Does that mean it's going to keep my ass alive if I offend the wrong Asian person? Fuck no. I might piss off the wrong Asian person. They might have been having a bad day and just decide we're going to fuck you up. So again, I ask you tokens. And I ask you Asians who are following this asshat just because he hasn't directly named your ethnicity, how do you know before your turn comes up on the chopping block? Now, yeah, Amorosa said that he said the N-word. We got no tangible proof, but we know that she wrote a book. We also know that she says that the general of such and such threw her out of the office. We got no proof that he didn't do it. We got no proof that he did. But I'm willing to bank that, more than likely, attention whore or not, it's probably some truth to that shit. Because you have to go back. You have to look at the things I've looked at. You have to look at the Central Park 5, where he said that these 5 young black men should be hung. But I'm pretty sure these 5 tokens that was in that video didn't think to look back for that shit before they decided, we're going to talk about black on black crime. I'm going to save that for the 5th or 6th video of this shit. Because yeah, black on black crime. In fact, that'll be a totally whole different thing. Black on black crime is the thing. I'm going to keep it away from this. But we have these tokens here. We're following this man blindly into a ball of fire, and they don't care. Now, let me ask you this in the next video.